Welcome back to The Way. This is a continuation of the Galatians series, and we're going to be in chapter 5, verses 13 and 14. 2 verses, really big. What you need to know before you watch the rest of this is who the Israelites are and who Moses was. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I can try to explain the rest. So we're going to jump into Ephesians. If you haven't seen the rest of the series, go back and watch them real quick. So Ephesians 13 and 14 out of chapter 5, verse 13. For you are called to freedom, brothers. Only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for flesh, but through love serve one another. Verse 14. For the whole law is fulfilled in one word. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. A lot of times, believers, Christians, non-believers, they hear love your neighbor as yourself, and they're like, okay, I know Jesus said that, or I know it's on top of the plaque in the classroom. It's this golden rule, do unto others as you would have done to you. It kind of explains the same concept, but where did it come from? And we're going to jump back quickly, Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18. Verse 18, do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against anyone among your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. It comes from the Old Testament, where Moses was instructed by the Lord to write down all of the laws. How many were there? There were about 613. Why were there 613 laws then? 613? Why would put 613 laws if in the New Testament he's just going to say there's only 2? Context, right? If you know who the Israelites are, like I said in the video you need to know, you'll understand that they were in Egypt for 400 years. That's almost double the time that U.S. has even been considered a country. It would take us back to 1670, 1626. It was before Columbus even got here. So think about that for a second. That's perspective. That's a long time. They might know orally, like who their grandparents were, and they told them stories. But that is a ton of generations of people who have chosen to go their own way. And obviously there's going to be some that stick to knowing the Lord. But most of them, I can probably assure you, because they were complaining the entire time in the wilderness, they didn't know or experience God yet. And so when he sends Moses on a rescue mission to bring them out of Egypt, they don't know anything. So it's like telling a toddler, be safe, love people, and then they just run into the street, or they drink something under the cabinets. It's like a cleaning supplies. So little rules here and there are definitely like guidelines and almost guardrails to keep them on track. And because they don't know anything like spiritually or who God is and what he, wants them to do to stay on the right path. And then another thing is it shows them that they can't do it. That's a lot. You think even just the minor ones that you see in the beginning of Leviticus, you're like, man, how do they keep track of all of these? It's just they didn't. They failed again and again. Obviously nobody was perfect. And so it's God is showing them that he is still with them, even though he's set out all of these rules. And they can't do it. And he's showing them that he is full of grace and mercy. And then you get to the New Testament in Matthew 22, and jump there real quick. In verse 37, Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All of the law and the prophets hang on these 2 commandments. He had responded to the religious leaders of the day, and they're like, okay, so Jesus, you're coming back to get rid of the law, but God had established that after he took us out of Egypt. So who are you to say that these two are the hinging points. Like, what are you going to say that to these laws? What is the greatest one? And Jesus is like, these are the two. They sum it all up. You're like, okay, so now he gets to sum it up. Why do they not need guardrails anymore? Because when you do those two, unknowingly, when you love the Lord, you're not going to do things that go against the Lord. When you love your neighbor, you're not going to act out against your neighbor. And they kind of fit, because God has already, throughout the Old Testament, laid out little guidelines here and there. Sometimes they're big, but sometimes they're little, to set like a precursor to what will come later. And it's the perfect mix. If God would have assigned the Israelites to love him and love their neighbors, mentally, they'd have been like, check, I do a pretty good job of that myself. That's the mentality that they would have had. And they would have been like, I'm good. I don't need a savior. Now with 613, it forces people to humble themselves and be like, okay, maybe I don't have this all figured out. I need you, God. I need a savior. That's all you need. You only need him to rely on, and he will supply. And so it fits perfectly into this Galatians series. Why? Because the next portion of this passage is going to talk about, your spirit fighting the flesh. And Jesus keeps things so simple. He says, love the Lord, love your neighbor as yourself. It's so simple, but it's so profound, because when you do those things, like I said, everything else falls in line. That's why he says, Matthew 11:28-30, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, my burden is light. Think about that. He understands that the burden of trying to climb the ladder of perfection, or trying to fix yourself, is really heavy. So when you give it to Jesus and you say, I can't do it, it's too much, you lay it at his feet. He said, I got you. So that's everything for today. We will continue the series and still be in chapter 5. So God bless. Have a good day, guys.